Greetings from Costa Rica. I hope you're doing well. My name is Matt Rosensteel, and a lot of people considering moving to my part of the country, Guanacaste, are anxious to know what schools are available to them in this area. If you're thinking about moving to Costa Rica with your kids, it's one of the most critical questions. Can I find good school options for my children? Today I'm going to give some quick general thoughts about schooling here that I intend to follow up with some more specific videos about schools in our area. Stay tuned. Greetings from Costa Rica. It's great to be with you again. My name is Matt Rosensteel, and I'm a realtor here in Guanacaste, the northwestern part of Costa Rica. A lot of families are moving here and looking especially at whether or not they're going to have good school options for their children. My intent today with this video is really only to give some general thoughts and knowledge about schools in our area and the options available to people considering moving here. And hopefully I'm going to be following up with a series of videos about specific schools in which I sit down with people that have direct experience, because as the father of a 6 and 3-year-old, at this juncture, my experience personally is quite limited. If you like straightforward information about Costa Rica, do be sure to subscribe to my channel. It will make me feel personally justified incrementally more the more you click on that little red button. So anyhow, let's focus on this area of Costa Rica, Guanacaste, and the schooling options available to people. If you've watched my video on raising kids here, where I also was just being very general, schools are basically the number one question that will define the search for where you want to live, because frankly, there are a limited number of options that I feel most parents moving down to Costa Rica from the US, Canada, or Europe would find acceptable. Especially now as we move out of the pandemic. This is March 12th, 2021. Many people are looking for an option that'll make sure their kid is back socially interacting with other kids as soon as possible, and hoping to move away from a virtual program. Obviously, Costa Rica, there are lots of expats here with their kids learning online, and that can be a spectacular option because we have great internet connections almost anywhere you look, at least in this part of the country. In my quiet community, Junquillal, even here we have fiber optic internet with up to 500 meg speeds that can ensure your kids can easily do online school if that's what they want. But in looking at the in-person options going forward, obviously in Costa Rica there's the public system and the private system to consider. Let's start with the public system and really not to give any commentary or express negative opinions. Costa Rica, and especially Guanacaste's public education system, are not funded to the level that the US, Canada, or most European school systems are funded. And I will put it at that, leave it at that. Between the difficulty of trying to use this small Central American tax base to provide free universal education for students from kindergarten through 12th grade, means that their resources are stretched pretty thin. And in general, you would find a very small number of expats who are successful sending their kids to any of the public schools, at least and especially in this region. Guanacaste is a particularly poor part of Costa Rica. There's an immense concentration of wealth in the Central Valley, the city, San Jose, Heredia, Alajuela, where I'm sure public schools have resources, more teachers, better classrooms, on and on and on, computers, access to good English teachers. But Guanacaste is this rural, for a long time, underdeveloped province that was originally focused in this agricultural push. So long story short, the school system here, I would say, is not performing to the level of expectation that any foreigner would want to see if they decided to invest here and live here. And so if you're not from Costa Rica, you're most likely looking at one of the private schools available. Here's where we get into the finite limited inventory, and if you're looking for a community to settle in permanently and your children are already school age, first focus on your school. In Samara, there are wonderful private options near Nosara and Guillones, Playa Pelada, that sector down there. There are wonderful options. In Tamarindo, and really the stretch of coast in which I live, there are probably the highest concentration of private school options for foreigners anywhere in the country, simply because this is also one of the places with the highest concentration of foreigners. Our Liberia International Airport, the beaches, the tourism development has created a need and a market for private school education. Today, you see half a dozen really strong options, really within 30 or 45 minutes drive of each other, near Tamarindo, Playa Potrero, Playa Conchal, this corridor where there's good expat development. I'm 100% positive that there are great options also near Coco and Hermosa, another place where you find good expat, vibrant communities with a large number of people. And I'm sure that many people in rural areas and smaller communities throughout Costa Rica are trying to provide better private school options, but the reality of economics means that most of these options are concentrated where you can find enough students to support them. In our area, to get specific, we've got La Paz Community School, CRIA, C-R-I-A, or the Costa Rica International Academy. There's Educarte. There's the Guanacaste Waldorf School, where my son, the 6-year-old, is currently in kindergarten. I'm trying to think, there's Journey and Tide Academy. 6 that I can mention just off the top of my head. If I've forgotten your private education center, do be sure to write me an email to matt@cvtamarindo.com and let me know, hey, I'd like to discuss this as well. But anyhow, there's half a dozen options that I just mentioned offhand. And one of the top benefits of living in this area and raising kids here is that you have the freedom of choice among 6 schools that, even among the ones that I can name, are a very diverse array of schooling. Costa Rica International Academy, which is one where I have no direct experience. All I've heard is that they have very traditional, the way that the United States schooling, students would imagine their day. La Paz Community School, I got to work directly with on some volunteer service projects. They're clearly, based on some unit learning and sort of a broader concept of, something more flexible, but there's a spectrum there. My son personally goes at the Waldorf-inspired school. He can even forget his shoes when he goes to class, and it's not that big a deal. It's a real arts-centered, play-centered education. So there are all these options, and I just mean to say that in this particular concentration, our area, as a parent, you're going to be able to choose, whereas in many areas of Costa Rica, you would find that if there is a private school, there might only be one option or 2. And if that option doesn't really fit your needs over time, then you're going to be in a difficult situation and might not be able to live there over the long term. How much do these options cost? There's a range, obviously. You can expect to pay, I would say, a minimum of $6,000 per student per year as sort of a base rate for their fees. If you're starting a new student, there will be new student tuition fees on top of that. And when I say $6,000, I'm giving a ballpark for the floor. There are options, of those that I mentioned. I know that some have fee structures up towards $10,000 or $12,000 per year. And really, in general, you can expect that you'll pay in that range $6,000 to $12,000 whether you've got 1, 2, or 3 students at the school. These options, some of them are 100% certified in the US. I know Korea and La Paz very much pride themselves on having certification for their high school students. I'll be happy to talk to other people on the channel and find out which specific schools are able to certify their high school degrees back in the US. And in general, those options that you find here, where there's a very large expat community, represent one of the largest concentrations of private schools in Costa Rica that I currently know of. If you've got more ideas as to where schools are, options for people, do be sure to send me that email. I'll be following up. Be sure to subscribe as I interview either a director, a teacher, just somebody that I can get in touch with from these different school options to be able to give you more specific information on each of those. We'll be posting them as school updates here on Costa Rica Matt. Thanks very much for watching. Do be sure to subscribe. Have a great day. Take care. Adios.